What's up, everybody? It's Jared and Miles here with the Photographic Collective Podcast. Once again, we're so blessed and honored that you're here with us to listen to our conversation with our good friend, Tom Wright. It's a really awesome conversation. Miles, tell him more.
Yeah, okay, so you guys, Tom Wright is this brilliant guy over in the UK. Very prolific, very well-known photographer that has now turned his attention into serving photographers in their creativity and in their systems and in their workflow and in their processes. And you guys, he's the mastermind behind some of the very biggest names in this industry these days. And he is going to have a conversation with us, not just about his life and the last year, 2 years of his life and the pivot over into this role, as well as give us a little bit of a sneak peek into his After the Pod training with us over on the platform, all about proper backup techniques and systems building and stuff like that. So it's a great chat. Tom is an amazing guy. Jared, take us over there, man.
Let's do it. Come on, join us.
What is life right now?
Life is complicated. We can start with the connection with Lauren earlier. Like, my son is also autistic. This is not just a theme of your early episodes. But he was diagnosed, well, in the UK, diagnosis is strange. The doctor said he's autistic, but he doesn't have a diagnosis. Because if he's got a diagnosis, people have to do something about it, and that's expensive. So there's like a whole process. So despite knowing that my son is autistic, we don't yet have a formal diagnosis for it. But what it did mean is that essentially he can't really access traditional education, but otherwise he's completely normal. So that's a really horrible phrase to use. I'm also neurodivergent, so if somebody called me abnormal, I'd feel weird as well. But it's one of those situations where he is 6 years old. He's in the first few years of school. He's just finished what you would have called kindergarten. He's now in his first actual year of school, and he couldn't cope. Essentially, the whole school environment was too much. He was having meltdowns, which usually happen when a kid is overstimulated or afraid, usually both. And the coping strategies weren't working. So what things that would previously have worked completely fine and he would have been able to walk through and have no issues, were not working, to the point where he was suspended from school twice because he was like literally running from one end of the school to the other to try and escape. And then when teachers would intervene, he'd get aggressive because it's a fight, flight, freeze response, because it's a fear response. And that obviously wasn't working. So suspended from school to get funding to teach his teaching assistant how to cope with his autistic meltdowns. That didn't work. He was suspended again. And then they got an educational psychologist in to help with basically teaching the school how to cope with it and how to reintroduce him. That he was diagnosed with something called emotionally based school avoidance, which basically happens when an environment becomes so unfriendly, a child would rather do something to injure themselves or somebody else rather than attend. You can it happens a lot more often after COVID, because obviously so many kids went through the school system and didn't get back very well. They weren't really coping with being around people in the same way. Long story short, from January of this year, my son was in school for an hour a day and I had to run a business. And because my wife works, it meant that the slack was picked up by me. So I was fitting in client work after hours in the 1 hour that I had during the day when he was in school. And that gradually increased to where we are now, where he's happy again. He's not having meltdowns to the same degree. He's learning how to self-regulate because we've spent the time with him. So every time there was a meltdown, rather than just treating it with aggression, we were properly trying to explain, like, this is why you feel this way. Let's have a look and think about what triggered it. So now he's aware of his triggers and avoids them. He self-regulates a lot. He's very emotionally aware. And this kid is 6.
Wow.
And also, despite the fact that he hasn't been in education for most of the year, he's still meeting standard for a child his age, despite the fact that because of the struggles he has with communicating, like in a written form, he can't really write stuff down. His assessments show that he's on standard, but when you actually speak to him, he's like streaks ahead, reading at the age of a 10-year-old, like just doing really, really well, because we've kind of taken a step back and taken a breath and allowed a bit of room for him over this 6 months. And I'm sure I'll say this and like tomorrow he'll have a meltdown and we'll all be like back to square one again. But for anybody out there that's kind of going through this year has probably been one of the most difficult I've had. It's been rewarding, obviously, like seeing the change in him has been incredible, and watching him cope with the school environment and deal with it is something that he should be proud of, because he's put all the effort in. But I also feel a bit of pride because I feel that we've dealt with things in a good way and helped him get back into education. So not photography related, but I was very grateful that my work was flexible enough that I can work with photographers who can work from anywhere at any time. So when I was asking my clients, can you give me a little bit of grace? Can you work with me at this time or that time? I was getting yeses, and that meant that I could continue to work through that period. So all of my like extracurricular activities, like I have a podcast too. I haven't recorded an episode in over a year. This is why, because I've been dealing with something that, in my opinion, is way more important.
Yeah.
And prioritizing the things that matter. So the fact that you guys are coming back from hiatus, I'm like, okay, maybe in 6 months I'll be there too.
Start a club.
Yeah.
Come on, man. We'll be your biggest champions.
Well, honestly, it's kind of nice to see you guys coming back too. So that's my year, but it's kind of been heartening to see that you've gone through a period of clearly focusing on your commercial and wedding work and just absolutely smashing it. And then it's nice to see you kind of like gradually coming back and thinking, well, okay, now that we have this, what do we do for other people? So yeah, hopefully I'll get there. But right now it seems to be a little bit family first, and then obviously the creative practice that I've got too. So that's like what's been happening for the last year. For anybody that cares, but that's where I'm at.
Well, I can promise, man. Tom, I think probably everybody cares. I think the reason why is because we're gonna help people connect these dots. I mean, we're only 10 minutes into this thing, and so we're gonna help people connect the dots in a hurry between, like, you don't get to, as a creative, you don't get to live with purpose compartmentally. You either live with purpose or you live without purpose. That is it. Like, and people that try and compartmentalize their purpose end up just watering themselves down. You just dilute your value all over the place. So the fact that you're like spending this time plugging in with your family, I would assume, I can't wait to hear about it, but I would assume it probably is bleeding over. You know, I'm like the last time you and I talked, you were saying, we've been friends for a lot of years. Like, let me preface that, but you were saying that you were feeling really creatively dry. Like you were just starving to go create stuff.
Yeah.
But like, how cool is it that you've spent this time pouring into your son, pouring into your family, and now it's like you're kind of, it feels like you're sort of revving back up those creative juices. Yeah.
Kind of. Like, I definitely think that needs unpacking a little bit, because the entire time that I was focusing on the family, like every creative does, I have this thing in the back of my head that I need to be making things. So I'd be with my son and thinking, but I need to work on this personal project. And the second that I ignored that sense that I need to focus on photography and do the personal project, do the work to get more work, everything got easier. So it was almost like giving up was the thing that I needed to do in the short term. And then when I came back, everything was still here. It turns out I haven't forgotten how to focus a camera. It turns out I haven't forgotten how any of that stuff works.
Like riding a bike.
Well, yeah. And plus, even with that, all the actual work that I do is working with like usually very established photographers with very complicated like problems, helping them to overcome creative issues. And the issue there was it did feel a little bit like I was pouring from an empty cup. But in actual fact, when I changed my mindset, it felt more like, no, this means I can answer this problem without any ego, because it's not what would I do. It's not what would my solution be. It's this person is in this situation with a broad set of issues, like unique to them, and dignify that properly. Like, what does it mean for them? Like, how do they cope with this? What do they need? And it means that actually it took me further away from being a photographer for a year, which I think I still need to be transparent. I want to continue to be a photographer. But during that time, I got to focus on other people because that's what I had energy for. So they got it all. And weirdly, the reason I feel more pumped now is because I've actually ended up helping more than just photographers. I've started working with designers and a few other kinds of businesses. And one of the designers I work with basically has designed a book around one of the personal projects that I'd done years ago and done nothing with. And she's finding like new inspiration from that old piece of work. So I'm almost kind of reminded that there's already value in the things that I have made. You don't constantly have to be creating. Like, as a creative, you build a legacy over many years, and certain pieces of work don't get the shine that they deserve because you don't have the energy for it. And there may be a point in life where you can't make something, you can't create something because of family circumstances or energy levels or even your own health problems. But then you've got this legacy, this kind of archive that you can dip back into that can end up being useful for other people. So do I feel pumped right now? Yes, definitely. But I think part of it's just because I'm talking to friends. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, it's nice seeing you both. And I didn't actually realize we were recording until about halfway through, like what's been going on in the last year. So that feels nice. But yeah, like, am I pumped now? Yes. Am I on the up now? Yes. Was that the case the entire time? Did I make some kind of laudable, conscious decision right from the beginning? No. But the second I kind of accepted my circumstances, set priorities, like focused on something important, it's weird how everything just sort of feels better. So yeah.
Yeah. That's so cool, man. That's encouraging, man. It's encouraging to me. I mean, I know me and Miles have talked hours and hours about how are we going to find a balance here. I mean, it's encouraging to hear you talk about kind of balance and how you're balancing family and all that stuff. And like, I think we're just committed, man. We're not going to sacrifice our families for the photo co or for our work or for anything. And there's got to be a way to balance it out where we can impact the world and still love our families super, super well. So just know that everything you just shared is really encouraging. So thanks for sharing that.
One of the things that kind of hit me was that I don't think that you can have balance. I think you can have focus, because, I mean,
explain that.
Well, think about it. Like, you can't look at two things equally intently at the same time, right? You can't. So what you get really good at is switching attention. Like, oh, attention there, attention here, attention there, attention here. And like, everything that you do has got a switching cost. Like, exactly. Well, we get this as photographers. If you focused on one thing, moving the camera and focusing again takes time. And the speed that you can do that is like, well, how proficient is the autofocus in your camera kind of thing? Or how quick can I manually focus this lens or whatever? So you don't have balance. It's just that sometimes things are together and they're aligned. So you can focus on them both because they're already, they're in alignment already. But there are other times when important things in your life aren't on the same plane. They're not in alignment. So you have to choose, do I focus here or do I focus there? And does focusing here mean that I'll be here forever? Well, absolutely not. You can change. You've got flexibility, but there's energy involved. There's time involved. There's effort involved. And part of the thing that I think you guys are doing really well is that there's two of you. So you can focus on two things, because it turns out you've got your own eyes with your own set of priorities, and you can be in two places at once. And I think that when I realized that I had to shift my focus, it definitely helped a lot. And sometimes the pain was when you could see something out of focus in the foreground going on, and you think, if I was better at focusing, I could have this shot and that shot. But right now, I can't switch. I'm not fast enough. So yeah, I think, like I said,
that is so relevant, Tom. Like, as a dad, as a friend, as a human, and as a medium format shooter.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, I'm like, it's pretty slow over here.
Man. Okay. Hey, let me back out just a little bit. I mean, I should have prefaced everybody by saying, like, if you haven't heard Tom's first episode with us, which was ages ago, you ought to listen to that. Tom's story is really interesting. And dude, you're probably the most soundbite heavy friend that I have. And I mean that as a compliment. Like, you say just individual sentences that come out of your mouth are deeply profound. And I couldn't possibly respect more the way, the capacity that you have to analyze work. It is truly remarkable. One of the high points of my career was you going through and doing a portfolio review for me. It was one of the most kind things anyone has ever said about my work, because you like read into the artist. So I think you have a weird ability as an empath. I think, first off, let me say this. I think you're uniquely suited to be a father to a little boy that needs some extra help. That is I don't know if there's another dad that's as uniquely suited. So like, give yourself some confidence there, because man, you were gifted the skill set to be this kid's dad. But also, you as a photo therapist, as somebody that can get in and like unpack brands and just support creatives, you have a really cool ability to see big picture. So can I ask you like a very direct question? Let's get on topic for just 2 seconds. What do you think fuels creativity? What is it that you see like that fuels creativity in the majority of artists?
I mean, are you talking about what I like to fuel creatives, or what actually does fuel creatives?
What does?
Yeah, what does?
So
like, where does that come from?
The problem is, like, most people are motivated by shallow things. They're motivated by jealousy. They're motivated by wanting to fit into a group. They're motivated by money, like money. That's a huge one. And there's a lot of reasons for that. If you think about like the way that we respond to anything, people want money, belongingness, because it's part of what we need as a person. You're trying to fulfill this kind of societal positional issue with your photography. I just don't know that that's super effective. And I think that the creatives that do very well, that in terms of expressing themselves, not necessarily in business, although sometimes both, that they're motivated by a need to say something, a desire for there to be another option, like trying to provide something. And I think the people that I appreciate the most as photographers tend to be trying to say something unique, say something that sounds like them, say something that is not the same as the person next to them. So rather than using, oh, such and such has a cinematic style, so I'll have a cinematic style, they're looking for, why do I emotionally connect with this person's work? Like, what is it about their style that makes me feel interested in this subject matter? And get super specific. Find that, take only that, and then try and find their way of saying something that's closer to what they actually feel. So for creatives that are externally focused, like they look at a lot of work, that can look like an analyzing, choosing a thing out of the work, and then not just instantly copying it, looking at it for what they appreciate, taking that and thinking, well, that wasn't quite what I appreciate the most. I'll make that. And it's kind of like a self-expression thing, it's almost like learning a language. Recently, I've been working with a lot of creatives that just see the world in a very different way. And I don't know that I necessarily believe in natural talent. I think that effort can overcome a lot, but there are some people that I've definitely met that do not have a technical bone in their body. They're probably the best photographers I've ever spoken to. And they'll sit and get frustrated and struggle with simple things, in inverted commas, technically, because it's distracting them from the thing they're trying to make. So they'll put a camera in their hand and they'll go into these amazing situations, taking photographs that I would never in a million years have seen. And you, as somebody looking at the work, can observe and think, I don't know how they got this, and make it look simple and effortless and soulful. And then very often we don't see these artists in 5 or 10 years because they burn out, because they don't have those support systems. So if you're asking somebody why they create, there's too many answers to that. But if you're one of those people that feels in the kind of bulk area where it's, I'm motivated by money only, or I'm motivated by such and such only, that I wouldn't really necessarily even call that creativity. It's more craftsmanship. And if you're in a situation where you're trying to say something and don't have the language, like looking at other people's work and trying to learn one word at a time so you can speak clearly, is a really inspiring way of getting work out. But more and more lately, I'm just kind of sat in awe of people that just seem to kind of have this thing in their head that's just, this is how an image should look. And putting a camera in their hands and giving them the smallest piece of like technical information just unlocks something, and it just kind of pours out of them like a river.
The keys. That's
yeah.
cool.
And
That's
I'm
really
definitely
cool.
a technician more than I am one of these kind of like prolific creatives. Like I feel like more of a craftsperson than an artist a lot of the time. But one of the great privileges that I have is that I feel like being able to take away some of those barriers and take away some of that pain. So we do see these people 5, 10, 15 years later in business because they haven't been brought down because they don't know how to back up correctly, or because they have issues with a camera that broke on a job and it kind of destroyed their confidence, these are all things that have actually happened. Like I've dealt with customers, with photographers that have been in that situation. And I want people to be able to express themselves without any restraint. And if that means learning the language so you can be creative in a way that feels correct to you, and teaching you how to observe and how to understand, that's one thing. But like I said, more and more recently, I'm seeing more of these people that are just savants that just have something. And it feels like all I'm doing is taking obstacles out of the way so they can keep running.
Tom, do you have anything do you have like a specific story that you could share with us? I mean, you don't have to use names, but like of clients that you've worked with that have that story that you've been able to work with them and pull out the obstacles and where they are now that you could share?
So I don't usually share client stories because part of why I have the job that I've got, and part of the reason why I call it phototherapy, is I feel like it should stay private.
Okay.
So if somebody else was here that I'd work with, that would be completely fine for them to share that story, but it isn't my story to tell, because in a lot of cases, these people go on to be educators, they go on to be coaches, they go on to do all these other things, or they're already doing that. And for me to share something that they're not doing very well, or they're struggling with, I think is unfair. Like, I wouldn't want that to happen to me. So I try not to do it for other people.
No,
I can tell you that what I just told you about people crying about like backup losses, etc., those are real things that have happened, and they're generic enough that I don't feel uncomfortable with it. But
you know what's interesting, Tom? I don't know if you would. I'd be curious about your thoughts about my work and me as a creative, because I feel like you know my work very well. But I actually I sympathize much. Yeah, I thought it was interesting to hear you say that you see yourself as more of a craftsman. Like I have sympathized. I have kind of like seen myself in that more savant stage my entire career. Actually, the biggest struggles that I've had has been having to teach myself. I mean, it's been the story of Photoco, right? So I have people pounding down the door saying, you need to be an educator, you need to teach. And, like, tell us how you see composition. And man, I've struggled for years on those conversations because I want to have an answer. Like I do. I truly, my son sat in the car with me a couple of days ago. He said, you know what you should do? You should create videos where you tell people how you see the lines and why you put people in them. And I sat there and just had this remarkable crisis of self, because I realized I don't know what that process is, truly. No. It just sort of happens. I look out and I see something and I'm like, let's just go play there. And I've always sort of, I don't know if I would say envied, but maybe, envied the people, Reggie. You remember Reg? He used to be with the Fujifilm team. Yeah. Reggie posted a thing on Instagram the other day where he has white lines drawn all over his photos. And he's like, what other people see and then what photographers see. And it's like the framing and the thirds and highlights coming from here and movement coming from there and all of this stuff. And I sat there just staring at that the other day and I thought, I don't see any of that.
No,
all that stuff just appears in my photo. I have no idea how it appears in my photo or why it appears in my photo. I could tell you why I took the picture right there, but does that make me sound crazy?
No, if anything, I actually think that it'd be wrong for you to teach that, because, well, not wrong. Wrong is a strong word. I don't mean that. What I'm trying to get to is that your point of uniqueness should not be somebody else's. It shouldn't be. We've already got Miles. We don't need another one. No offense. Like, one's enough.
You're not wrong.
Well, it is. It's one's enough. Otherwise, what's the point? And if you're trying to teach somebody exactly how you see, you've missed the mark, because the entire point is that we're all unique. We are all different. And if everybody is looking at the person next to them going, I need to be like that, we're all going to be sad. All of us. Like, what we need is to try and find a way of, like, if you're talking about needs again, they call it self-actualization. It's when you do something. It sounds stupid. I don't like that word, but it's what it's for. It's when you can motivate yourself to do something elevated, something that isn't positional, not motivated by your peers or anything else. You're doing it for the love of it. Things like worship would fall in that area. It's something you're doing because it's something that enhances you and your life and has nothing to do with anybody else. It doesn't require anything else. It's you bettering yourself because you want to. So not only do I understand why you can't tell somebody, because the ability to take a good photograph and the ability to dissect one are two separate skill sets and absolutely not related at all. And also, not every photograph that's good is anything to do with composition or pattern recognition. And you can find those things later and you can ascribe value to them. But in the end, you took the photograph when it felt right. So what you've done is spent 10, 20 years training your gut to say, this is what beauty looks like to me. Click. So when somebody says, oh, break down this photograph, well, that's pointless. You're never going to be in that situation again. Like, I'm looking on your website now and there are 3 hero images, and the middle one is a couple stood in front of the Golden Gate Bridge. And like, I've been there. I've stood in that spot. I've stood in the spot where you overlooking. There are a bunch of cyclists on my right from Germany, which is really strange. But I've been in that spot. I've seen this situation. I didn't see the bridge like this. I didn't see it like this. I didn't see the compression that you put on the shot. I didn't see the leading lines. It wasn't overcast, weirdly, for San Francisco, so I didn't even see the shadow on the bridge. Like, none of those things that you were reacting to in the moment would have had any relevance to me whatsoever. And if I'd been in that situation, the people stood in the foreground of the photograph wouldn't have been there. It would have been somebody else, because that was their wedding day and it's not mine. And they might have felt uncomfortable walking in a really high mugging area in San Francisco without anybody anywhere near them while you shot them on a long lens. So the fact is that even though you could look at that photograph and you could break down every element exactly where it was, and it's semi-repeatable because it's partially a landscape shot, what would be the point? Like, what would be the point? Why is that beneficial?
I guess my point then, Tom, this is why, dude, we need to have you on once a month. My point then is, like, then how do we as educators, like, okay, say this. So you're speaking to a whole community of photographers that are at every possible level of their career.
Yeah.
Like, I know personally people that listen to this podcast that are, in their 4th quarter of their career. They're on their way out. They've been doing this for 25, 30 years, and they're kind of holding on for dear life, but they're ready. They're checking out. Mm-hmm. And then I know people that picked up a camera yesterday.
Yeah.
Right. And they're like, being a photographer would be fun. And we have the influencers and we have the brand people and we have people that are diehard. They just want to be educators. They don't even know why. How would you speak to a vast swath of the industry and say, here is how you get your work to elevate?
Stop trying to force it, for a starter, because you can't accelerate growth without inspiration or knowledge. But there's that phrase that inspiration has to find you working. So you should do the work. You should consume a lot of visually interesting content. And I don't mean necessarily just your peers. I mean things that you find visually interesting. For some people, that's films. For me, it isn't. Mm-hmm. Like, literally, I very often don't even look at the screen when I'm watching films. But that's because I find it overwhelming. But for some people, it's movies. For some people, it's historical photo books. For some people, it's other people's wedding albums. It could be advertisements. It could be literally anything. In my case, it's magazines. And I don't mean like People magazine. It's magazines that are curated, that are dealing with creative work. And there's a lot of independents that do that. But what you're trying to do is filter out as much of the low quality imagery as possible. So if you see something and dislike it, actively select not to look at it again. Simple as that. Choose visuals that are interesting. Keep track of things that you find interesting. If you haven't already seen it, there's an app you can get called Notion. You can make a mini database of all the things that you love. You put an app, like a little plugin in your browser, and you press a button and it ends up in a database for you. So if I find a blog post that Miles did like 5 years ago that I really like, I press a button and I've got a copy of it that I can look at that references Miles' website. So I'm not stealing your images, just to say. And I can look back at it. And it means that if I am feeling creatively uninspired, I have like an entire library of healthy visuals I can look at that I find inspiring.
That's
and
cool.
Sometimes it's about forgetting visuals entirely and trying a different process. So if you have bought the brand new Sony A1 II and you've bought a 35 millimeter 1.4 and you're frustrated because the work doesn't look the way it should, well, congratulations, it's because you bought a camera based off a spec sheet. Like, there's lots of people that buy an A1 II and the 35 1.4 and love it. But the fact is, if you bought it because you thought it was the best, you've made a mistake. You need to go back, you need to start from grassroots and decide what you find visually interesting and follow that path, even if it makes the process of photography harder. Especially as we come into an era where AI is going to become more convincing and more pervasive, things that are imperfect will have greater value, without a doubt. There's currently a new image generation model. I found it on Threads the other day, and I could not distinguish the images from stuff that was shot on a point and shoot film camera. It even got all the nuance of like the imperfections in there. So when I say this, I mean this with the greatest like intention. We need more people willing to say things that haven't been said before, because anything that's already been done will be repeatable with a paragraph written into a text box. So more and more doing things like dissecting old images, choosing the camera the other photographer chose, those things are going to end up being the things that weigh you down. And sometimes you need to look for inspiration. Other times you just need to build a creative practice with a new set of tools and see what happens. And that doesn't have to mean throwing out the baby with the bathwater. You can rent a camera, you can rent a lens, you can borrow a camera from somebody else, but just do something that pushes you into an active space. If you're like me, the image digestion will take you so far. But if you're an active person, like all these amazing creators I was talking about before, that it just pours out of them, sometimes putting a different lens in front of you can be the thing that unlocks something. And different does not mean better. You could buy a cheap one. In fact, I'd actually actively encourage it at the moment. Cheap lenses from every camera brand kick ass. You should go back and find some. So yeah, I think to kind of make a long story short, AI is going to make stuff that is perfect almost trivial to produce. It may even make things that are imperfect trivial to produce. So you should be seeking your own unique brand of imperfection that says something.
I love that. Yeah. That's pretty cool, man. Tom, how do you help people do that? How do you help people find their uniqueness when they come to you? What does that take?
Well, it depends on the person. Like for those people that are just like a creativity hose, like it's actually pretty easy, because I can teach somebody how to build a backup system within like 8 hours. I can teach somebody how to build a preset within about 8 hours. We can go through somebody's color process. Like, those things aren't the hard part. The hard part is, how do I take somebody that's creatively stuck, that doesn't feel like they're inspired, and how do we give them like a framework or tools so they can get to that stage where they're starting to be creative for the sake of it. They're making things that don't just look like the next person. You break them out of this box of, but such and such does it this way, so I did it that way. That's the right way. That can take forever. So the phototherapy side of what I do is to tackle that problem. It's like, how do I get you from feeling stuck and like you don't know what the problem is, but something isn't hitting, to a point where you're going out and creating work that feels like the best stuff you've ever made. And that's an ongoing process. So people will book me in blocks of 8 hours, and we make them work. So we'd use an hour here or there. We can use 4 hours. You could do a day intensive. It doesn't matter. We just spend time working through your process to the point where you don't feel blocked anymore. And we try and find things that interest you and help you to follow those lines of interest. And sometimes it isn't even photography. Sometimes it's a case of, you don't feel good because you pigeonhole yourself to the wrong audience with a brand that doesn't serve them anymore. So sometimes it's about, how do we strategize differently? How do we tell somebody the thing that you desperately want to make in here and put it into words, so you can tell a brand designer, I want a brand like this, make something for me. So it's not really a short answer to the question, but if you want me to put it in like categories, you can either get ongoing support, which is called phototherapy. I do a preset building and color education course, which is called color therapy. And I've got backups and like how to make Lightroom not suck, which is called workflow therapy. And color and workflow, really easy. We can be in and out within 8 hours, nice and simple. Whereas the phototherapy is, well, it depends how stuck you are. and I don't want to rush you through that process.
Yeah.
So that's how I work with people usually.
That's so cool. I feel like so often we can have identity crisis, and we just need somebody. We just need somebody to speak into our life. Honestly, I mean, I think our prayer has been Photoco will become a lot of those tools. When I was reading through your website, even the stuff you filled out in your form before this podcast, it just made me think like, dude, this is so our heart as well. Like for Photoco, for that community, really hoping that those live calls that we do can create avenues for these kind of conversations where people can not have identity crisis, but have somebody come in and help. Just coming in from the outside, an outside perspective is just so valuable.
Yeah. And I think the reason it feels aligned is because there's a reason why Miles and I got on all those years back. There's a reason why we were having these conversations before this podcast happened. It's because I think the industry genuinely needs more people like Miles. Like I recorded a testimonial about this. Like you might not have seen it yet, but basically I think we need more people like you two you're not trying to push this kind of like cookie cutter approach to doing things that's going to result in X amount of dollars. You're not there to like, let's get the race to $100,000 in place. Like, let's get people through that machine or sell them on that dream if it's not possible for some people because of circumstances or skill level. You're very good at meeting people where they are and allowing people to talk about the problem first. And if you don't know what the problem is, like how on earth can you educate around it? So I think that more and more we need people that are less formulaic, willing to be a bit more flexible. And we definitely need like casual community as well. I feel like that's something that's kind of disappeared as everybody's kind of like pushed everything into like Facebook groups and then Facebook died. All that kind of like built-in community died with it. And that's such a shame. Like so much of what we do is in isolation. And I think having a quiet place that is supportive where you can talk about actual problems with people is something that we need. Anyway, I'm not here to just to plug you the whole podcast, but
no, it's good.
Yeah, well, it is good. It's great. We need it.
Yeah. No, you're right. We do need it. Well, one thing I was super pumped for our after the pod stuff. I know you're going to talk to us a little bit about strategy and how to get our lives back. Because honestly, like as me and Miles spent just the summer, really planning out the Photoco. I mean, it has been like a struggle to figure out like how do we balance and how do we focus, our attention on all the things that are happening when honestly, like we are so blessed. Like we have so many amazing things happening and amazing clients and people that we want to take care of, but really feel like we need to do this Photoco thing. And so it's like, okay, we're going to find out how to focus on the things, how to balance our family, how to balance work. So I'm actually really pumped about what you're going to share with us in the after the pod, just with strategy, because I know that's a lot of it. Even talking, I want to hear more about even how like your hour of day of work, like I know that plays into it. Like you've created workflows that have made it possible for you to be a good dad and run a good business at the same time, which is just like so awesome. So
I mean, an hour was definitely pushing it, but we got through it. So,
bro. I love Tom Wright.
Dude, he's too smart to be a photographer.
I know. Every time I listen to him, I walk away just thinking about a lot. And even in that conversation, I'm stepping back and he makes you really take a step back and just do an overview, an audit of your life and what your business and how you're doing things. What are some things that stood out to you just in that talk with him?
I mean, I want to start by just the fact that he is just so approachable.
He is.
His kind of starting point of saying that he was listening through the last episode with Lauren Ashley, and how talking about him and his struggle as a dad with having a son that's autistic and what taking a year or maybe a couple of years now off of being able to work like traditional hours. I think it doesn't just speak. I mean, on one hand, I think it speaks to who he is. Like that says a lot. Being a good dad that's a hard thing, but not more so. I don't mean that, but second to that, I think it speaks a lot to his ability to create systems because he kept this business alive.
Yeah. I know I was hungry for more of that. I wanted to know more. Like, how are you? I mean, because it sounds like just such a really hard thing, like to be able to put systems in place that can create that hour of work being so proficient to where you can get the stuff done.
Yeah.
I just imagine he's just a well of wisdom when it comes to that. But yeah, I agree. The vulnerability, I hope that I mean, I know that's our prayer for this podcast. Like, I hope that the guests that come on and speak to us, I hope that they feel that freedom and feel the space to be vulnerable like that, because I'm just like Lauren. I think their stories will connect with so many people. So I'm really, really glad that he shared kind of that vulnerable piece of his life.
Yeah, and I don't know if I know anybody. Truth be told, this isn't me being like exaggerative. I don't know that I know anybody that is as capable of seeing an artist inside the art as Tom is.
I mean, know it's really unique.
He looks at someone's work and he just like, he can just dissect this deep part of like the photographer's soul by seeing their work. It really is. It's
a gift.
Truly remarkable.
It's a gift that I hope the Photo Co can really glean from in the months to come. Because I mean, I think when we put our heads together of like, who is somebody that we could bring on that could really help our people, you know, Tom was on the top of the list. And so I'm really excited about what he's going to share in the After the Pod as far as strategies on how to get your life back, because I feel like that is, so many of us are in this struggle bus of trying to find balance. And like he said in the podcast, trying to find focus on the right things, to where we just need help, and we need systems that a lot of us are not gifted at creating systems in our lives. So I'm actually really pumped about what he's going to share with us.
Yeah, I think one of the coolest things about this conversation with Tom is that we had this opportunity to see him at kind of like a meta level, but like who he really is. And I hope that in the After the Pod, he goes there. Who he really is a very data driven, like very grassroots type.
He's a nerd. Go ahead and say it.
Yeah, he's a nerd.
He's a nerd.
And dude, I adore both sides of Tom. I think he's a great dude, but yeah, I'm excited to hear. I mean, we kind of just told him to run with it, like create something for us that we probably don't do well. And man, I like a little tease. I mean, he is talking about backups, right? It's like, talk about something that stresses me out all the time. Do you ever feel like, how do you feel about that? It's like every time you put that memory card in, you just quietly hope that the hard drive doesn't go wrong, right?
Yeah, I mean, totally. That's
and
like
even when you have multiples,
away.
You've got mirrors and all of those systems in place. And the
walking
time
away
capsule.
From every wedding, where you got this little piece of anxiety. But yeah, he's going to give us some really practical steps on how to master that piece of anxiety in our lives when it comes to storage and backing up things. So I hope you stick with us. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Tom Wright, and I hope you go check him out. You need to check out his website. It'll all be in the description. But even just hitting him up on Instagram, Tom is a great friend. And so if you're looking for a great friend, I think he would, he could be that for sure. But hey, stick with us for the After the Pod. It's totally going to be worth it. Is that okay that we didn't pitch like, go sign up, blah, 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 blah?
I think it's great. Do you want to record like a super quick ad break? Would that be super difficult to like just drop in like your music comes in or your swipe comes in and you say, or you have the AI person that says like, hold on. And then it's like,
can you just tag on to the end of that?
Yeah.
I just said,
hey, before we lose you guys, before you click out, remember, please, this is the last week. Jared, can you believe that? This is it, man.
It's here, man.
August 15th, the doors open to Photo Co. And you guys, the wait list is actually getting kind of long. In fact, if everybody that is on the wait list signs up, we will have exceeded our goal for
which is huge.
Startups.
It's so cool.
Man, so cool. So you guys, there's a link right at the top of the show notes and in our Instagram bios and on the Facebook group. And basically everywhere that I exist online, there's a link for you to join that wait list. And what you're going to get with that link is just instant information about when the doors open, as well as instant information about really what the Photo Co. is. So click over, join that list. The first 50 guests through the door on August 15th will be receiving special forever pricing. And we've already released what that looks like, but that's under $40 a month forever. For really exclusive, very cool content that we are working our butts off to be able to produce. So anyway, join that wait list. You guys tell some friends, bring some community into this with us. And until the next time that we meet, thank you guys so much for joining us at the Photographic Collective Podcast.